The same handful of tropical spots soak up nearly every American vacation: Hawaii, Cancun, the Bahamas, while some of the clearest water and emptiest beaches on the planet sit almost ignored. We counted down 20 tropical islands most Americans never seriously consider, ranked to number 1. And that top pick may have you pricing out flights before the list is over. Opening the countdown at number 20 is an island that throws out the whole tropical template: Malta. There are no swaying palms here, no thatched beach bars, and that mismatch with the postcard is exactly why most Americans skip this little Mediterranean archipelago. What it trades palms for is harder to come by. History pressed into the very ground, walls that watched empires come and go, and swimming bays so clear you can count the pebbles on the bottom from a boat. The prehistoric temples at Hagar Chim have stood for 5,000 years, older than Stonehenge. Valletta, the capital, carries UNESCO World Heritage status in its own right. And the Blue Lagoon off Camino, between Malta and Gozo, turns out water so turquoise people half doubt their own eyes. Practical wins pile up too. English is an official language, day-to-day costs run roughly 17% below stateside, and the crime rate sits among Europe's lowest. The catches are real but easy to work around. Summers get crowded, the July and August heat is punishing, and a few popular beaches have currents worth respecting. Come outside peak season, grab a small car or scooter, and Malta delivers what Santorini can't, at a third of the cost and a fraction of the crush. Better still, make quieter Gozo, the sister island, part of the plan. A short ferry across, and the pace drops another gear, the crowds thin further, and the swimming coves get even better. Wait until you see number 19, where the architecture looks hand-painted. That's Curaçao, home to a Caribbean waterfront that plays like Amsterdam reimagined in the tropics, and somehow still flying under the American radar. Willemstad, the capital, is a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Its Dutch colonial row houses painted in sherbet yellows, oranges, and terracottas above a harbor where freighters and sailboats glide past the old walls close enough to touch. The State Department lists the island at level 1. Ordinary big city caution, nothing more. English is spoken widely alongside the local papiamento. The currency tracks close to the dollar, so there's no math to do, and the diving is world class. Coral walls plunging into deep blue, unhurried sea turtles cruising beside you, reefs still healthy enough to feel alive. The sand at Grota Canip and Casabao is the kind that quietly makes you rethink a few life choices. Honesty demands the downsides. Curaçao runs dry and scrubby next to lush neighbors like Dominica or Martinique, and prices land above the regional norm. But for European charm, superb underwater scenery, and a rock-solid safety record in one place, it earns a spot on any serious shortlist. The next island asks something a beach holiday usually doesn't. Number 18, Dominica, junks every expectation you carry about the Caribbean. While its neighbors were grooming their coasts into resort strips decades back, Dominica went the other way, or the terrain decided for it. Jungle-cloaked volcanic peaks, rivers warmed from below by geothermal heat, and the planet's second-largest boiling lake steaming inside an active crater. After years of sanitized travel, this rawness can feel almost disorienting. The advisory sits at level 1, low risk and straightforward. English is official, and US dollars pass easily alongside the Eastern Caribbean currency. What keeps Dominica off a higher rung is pure practicality, thin luxury infrastructure, few resorts, and steep, narrow interior roads. Show up expecting Aruba and you'll be lost inside an hour. But if your idea of a great morning is reaching a waterfall nobody else has found yet, snorkeling reefs off Portsmouth that no crowd has worn out, or sinking into a hot spring with nothing but birdsong and moving water around you, Dominica delivers a kind of authenticity that's going extinct. One caveat: hurricane season runs June through November, and the island is exposed, so aim for December through May, rent a four-wheel drive for the interior, and carry insurance covering medical evacuation because rural clinics are limited. Do the homework and the payoff is a Caribbean that still feels like a discovery. This is an island for hikers, divers, and anyone happiest when a day involves a little effort and a lot of nature. The people who find Dominica tend to get quietly protective of it. Some places rest on a single feature so strange there's little else to say. On Virgin Gorda, that feature is the baths. a tumble of house-sized granite boulders heaped along a white sand shore. Forming hidden pools, sea caves, and saltwater grottos you wade and scramble through to explore. It reads less like a beach than a puzzle the ocean built for the curious. Part of the British Virgin Islands, Virgin Gorda carries a Level 1 advisory, low crime, calm days, and the convenience of the US dollar, with English everywhere and no language gap at all. The place moves at a slow, unhurried pace the busier Caribbean lost a generation ago, the surrounding waters rate among the world's finest for sailing, and the snorkeling through the boulders at the baths simply can't be duplicated. Cost is the honest note here. This isn't budget territory, accommodation skews up market, and arrival means a small regional flight or a ferry hop. The rocks themselves carry real hazard too, as surge can shove water through the boulders without warning, and there are no lifeguards, so read the conditions and don't let the scenery make you reckless. For the traveler willing to sort the logistics though, Virgin Gorda is truly one of a kind. Number 16 is so quiet, most travel agents have never booked it once. Almost nobody's heard of tiny St. Eustatius, and that's the whole appeal. Tucked into the northeastern Caribbean, this speck of an island was once among the busiest trading ports in the Atlantic world. In the 1700s, its little harbor handled more cargo than most of Europe's major ports. Then the routes moved, history rolled on, and Statia slipped quietly off everyone's mental map. What's left is an island thick with archaeology, superb diving over submerged colonial ruins and old wrecks, and a daily rhythm so slow it can feel like stepping outside time. The dormant volcano called the Quill rises above it all, hikeable right to the rim, where you gaze down into a crater thick with forest. English is common, the US dollar is the currency, and crime sits about as near zero as the Caribbean offers. The trade-off is that Statia insists on being met on its own terms. A handful of restaurants, modest rooms, and not a scrap of resort infrastructure. It's for travelers who read an absence of crowds as the reward, not the drawback. Now the list tips into seriously extraordinary territory, starting with the Greek island that delivers the Santorini fantasy without the mayhem. Number 15 is Naxos. Every summer, millions cram into Santorini chasing a dream the island can barely hold up anymore. Sunset crowds you can't move through, hotel rates that could bankroll a home renovation, a visit that turns into logistics management. What few of them realize is that a 40-minute ferry away, the biggest island in the Cyclades waits with its own knockout beaches, ancient temples, and mountain villages, and a fraction of the people fighting for the same lounger. Naxos is a whole, self-sufficient island. It grows its own food, makes its own cheese, presses its own wine. The sands at Plaka and Agios Prokopios rank with the finest in Greece, the water shading from pale turquoise at the shore to deep cobalt offshore, and the old Venetian town stacked above the port is layered with centuries of history. At the harbor mouth, the lone marble doorway called the Portara frames the Aegean at sunset with no filter required. Greece sits at level 1, costs run well below Santorini or Mykonos, and the tavernas plate fresh seafood at prices that feel unreal by Western European standards. The advice is simple: dodge August, rent wheels for the quiet southern beaches, and give it 4 or 5 days. Naxos rewards the slow traveler, never the day tripper. Spend a night in one of the mountain villages and you'll trade the beach scene for something quieter still. Stone lanes, family tavernas, and a view down to the sea most visitors never even glimpse. Number 14 is another Greek island, but with a claim few Mediterranean spots can make: water that truly rivals the Caribbean. Meet Lefkada. Photographers keep coming back to one stretch of its coast, the cliffs at Porto Katsiki, dropping almost sheer into blue and white water so vivid the shots get accused of being doctored. They aren't. That's just Lefkada on a clear morning. What sets it apart within Greece is how you get there. A short causeway and a floating bridge tie it to the mainland, so you can simply drive on, no ferry at all, a real gift for road trippers and anyone who finds boat schedules stressful. Its beaches, Porto Katsiki, Egremni, and Kathisma, routinely place among Europe's most admired, the water warm, the sand fine, the clifftop views the kind that pin you to a bench longer than planned. Windsurfers across the continent know Vasiliki in the south, where the wind is close to ideal nearly year-round, while inland, the island turns green and mountainous, its villages seeing almost no foreign tourism. The honest catch? There's no international airport, so you fly into Preveza on the mainland, a short drive off, and the marquee beaches do fill in high summer with Europeans already onto the secret. Come in late May or early September for the same water and cliffs with room to breathe. And because you can drive straight on, it pairs beautifully with the neighbors. A few days here, a ferry hop to Kefalonia or Ithaca, and you've strung together an Ionian road trip most travelers never attempt. Number 13 is protected so tightly that only a set number of visitors get in each day. Off the Atlantic coast of Galicia, in Spain's northwest, 3 untamed islands stand across the Vigo estuary's mouth like a natural fortress. These are the Seas, a national park for decades, and that long protection has preserved something Europe seldom still offers: a beach that looks exactly as a beach should. Rodas, a slender white sand ribbon linking 2 of the islands with a calm lagoon on one side and open sea on the other, has been ranked among the planet's most beautiful by outlets that agree on almost nothing. The water runs cold. This is the Atlantic, not the Mediterranean, but on a sunny day, its clarity and color are startling. Because it's a national park, daily numbers are capped by permit. Ferries sail only from Vigo and Bayona, and you can't stay overnight unless you've locked one of the scarce campsite spots months ahead. For nearly everyone, this is a day trip, and among the best in Spain. The rules are strict and enforced. No pocketing shells or stones, no straying off the marked paths, no drones, and precisely because they work, the islands still feel wild. Book the ferry well ahead for summer weekends. It sells out every time. Bring your own food and water, since little is sold on the islands, and give yourself the full day. The climb to the lighthouse, with its view over all 3 islands, is the part most people remember longest. The next one isn't the Mediterranean or the Caribbean at all, it's Hawaii, just not the Hawaii you know. Number 12, Lanai. Say Hawaii to most Americans and they picture Waikiki or Maui's Resort Row, the polished, predictable version millions cycle through. Lanai sits barely 9 miles across the channel from Maui and runs in a completely different key, around 3,000 residents, 1 small town, and a deliberate commitment to staying the most private of the main islands. 2 Four Seasons resorts hold down the luxury end, some of the best hotels in the entire Pacific, yet you needn't book one to appreciate the place. In the interior, Garden of the Gods spreads out a Martian-looking field of red and orange eroded rock, while Hulapoe Bay, the main swimming and snorkeling spot, is a protected marine preserve where spinner dolphins slip through at first light, and the reef edge offers some of the best easily reached snorkeling in the state. The catch, as ever, is cost. You arrive by short flight from Honolulu or ferry from Maui, and with no grocery chains, no fast food, and no big box stores, everything runs pricier than the mainland, the tab for seclusion. For a version of Hawaii that reads nothing like a theme park, this is it. Rent a 4-wheel drive and the place opens up further. The rough tracks out to empty beaches and the eerie rock field at Garden of the Gods are where Lanai stops feeling like a resort and starts feeling like a genuine escape. Number 11 is one most Americans would never file under tropical, and the experience is unlike anything else here. This is Naoshima, a modest island in the Sado Inland Sea of Japan that has quietly grown into one of the planet's most remarkable art destinations. Its world-class museums built straight into the hillsides and shore so the buildings vanish into the landscape rather than dominate it. Even the ferry over eases you into a different frame of mind. The Chichu Art Museum, sunk almost entirely underground by architect Tadao Ando, holds a permanent collection that includes 5 vast Claude Monet water lily canvases in a room where shifting daylight changes the paintings hour to hour. Outside, installations and sculpture dot the island, none more famous than Yayoi Kusama's yellow and red polka dot pumpkins, the most photographed images here. Japan sits at level 1. The crime rate is extraordinarily low, and the island is spotless, orderly, and easy for foreign visitors, with English signage at the main sites. The wrinkle is access. A train to the port at Uno, Then a 20-minute ferry, with some museum tickets requiring advance booking, and the few lodgings selling out fast in peak season. Rent a bicycle on arrival, it's the right pace for the whole place. For an island that resembles nowhere else on Earth, Naoshima belongs on the list. It works best as an overnight rather than a rushed day trip. Staying lets you catch the outdoor installations in the quiet of early morning and evening, long after the day crowds have caught the last ferry back. Number 10 heads to Southeast Asia, to an island growing fast but still holding enough of its original magic to be worth every mile. Meet Phu Quoc. Not long ago, travelers only whispered about it. A long, forested island off Vietnam's western coast with white sand, warm water, and next to no development. That hush is gone in the stretches where resorts have risen fast this past decade, yet the island is large enough, and its northern and southern ends undeveloped enough, that beautiful and uncrowded is still fully on offer. Down at the southern tip, the beaches strung across the Anthoy archipelago rank with Southeast Asia's finest, clear, calm, under an hour by boat from the main island, and the snorkeling and diving around the little offshore islets rival Thailand's at a fraction of the cost and crowding. Vietnam holds a level 1 advisory, and the food is outstanding even by the country's high bar, with fresh seafood grilled beachside at the night market for almost nothing by American reckoning. Honest notes: rapid growth means quality swings sharply by area, mosquitoes are real in the wet season, and June through September is worth skipping for weather. The airport now takes direct flights from several Asian hubs, with US routings via a major regional airport. For those willing to travel, Phu Quoc still carries undeniable character. The move is to skip the built-up central strip, base yourself near the quieter beaches at either end, and take a boat out to the little islands for the day. That's where the island, the whispers whereabouts still lives. Number 9 is an island divers have guarded for years and almost nobody else has found. Some places stay hidden because word about them travels slowly, and that slowness is the safeguard. Malapascua, a tiny island north of Cebu, reachable only by a quick banca boat ride from the mainland town of Maya, carries a reputation among serious divers that's hard to overstate. It's one of the only spots on Earth where thresher sharks turn up reliably at a shallow cleaning station in the early morning, day after day, all year. Creatures of the deep that scarcely ever come near dive sites anywhere else, yet turn up here so reliably, the island has become a pilgrimage for underwater photographers and shark obsessives worldwide. Beyond the sharks, the surrounding reefs are in fine shape. The white sand beach threading the little village is a real beauty, and the handful of dive resorts are run by people who plainly adore the work. The Philippines sits at level 2, increased caution, mostly for crime in certain areas and lingering concerns in parts of Mindanao, but Malapascua itself is calm and insulated by geography. Power cuts are a normal part of island life, and there's essentially no medical care on site, so carry your own medication, buy solid insurance, and set realistic expectations. The reward is an island that still feels untouched by everything that standardized tropical travel. The pre-dawn start for the thresher dive is brutal. You're on the boat in the dark, well before sunrise, but anyone who's surfaced from that shallow reef with a thresher circling below will tell you the lost sleep was nothing. Number 8 occupies a category all its own. Cultural landmark, beach paradise, and living history rolled into one. Within 20 minutes of stepping off the plane onto Zanzibar, you'll get why people keep returning. Clove and cinnamon on the air in Stone Town's tight stone lanes, and buildings layering Swahili, Arab, Persian, and Portuguese influence across the centuries in ways no museum could reproduce. The north and east coasts run to the exact tropical scene people picture for years. Powder sand, shallow turquoise, wooden dhows on the water, and Stone Town itself is a UNESCO World Heritage Site that earns every letter of it. Tanzania carries a level 2 advisory over crime and, in isolated cases, unrest and terrorism risk, mostly elsewhere in the country. On Zanzibar itself, the realistic worry for visitors is petty theft, mainly around Stone Town after dark and on the busier beaches. Keep cash and documents secured, steer clear of unfamiliar areas after dark unless a local is guiding you, and arrange excursions through your hotel instead of off the street. Do that, and the rewards are immense. world-class snorkeling at Manemba Atoll, the red colobus monkeys of Jozani Forest found nowhere else on Earth, and a short boat ride off Prison Island with its giant Aldabra tortoises, well past 100 years old and thoroughly indifferent to the crowd. Come prepared, and it may be one of the best trips you ever take. Give yourself time for both halves of it. A couple of days lost in Stonetown's maze, then a few more out on the northern beaches, and you'll leave with a far fuller picture than the resort-only crowd ever gets. Number 7 has drawn travelers for decades, blending luxury, natural beauty, and real safety into something hard to top. For years, Mauritius lived almost entirely in the European imagination, especially the British and French, whose colonial history left a culture fusing African, South Asian, and European strands into something wholly its own. Americans have been slow to it, mostly because the flights are long and indirect, and that distance has kept a genuinely special place off the radar. The beaches meet any honest standard, sheltered lagoons of calm, warm water fenced from the open sea by barrier reefs that also produce some of the region's best snorkeling and diving. At Chamarel, the 7-colored earths lay down stripes of red and brown, violet, green, and blue, which refuse to blend no matter the rain and wind, one of those sights that sound made up until you're standing over them, with the Chamarel waterfall plunging off the plateau nearby in a single drop. Mauritius ranks among Africa's most stable and safest nations, and Americans can stay visa-free for up to 60 days. Cost is the honest catch. Long-haul flights, resort rates, and the general premium of island living stack up. But for a tropical island that delivers on every front at once, safety, scenery, food, infrastructure, Mauritius makes the argument hard to refuse. It suits the traveler after genuine downtime rather than a checklist. Long lagoon swims, slow meals blending Indian, Creole, and French flavors, and just enough inland to see that you never feel there only for the beach. Number 6 is about as close as it gets, geographically, and still almost entirely overlooked. Here's the surprise. One of the Pacific's greatest wild coastlines, ancient rainforest, pounding surf beaches, resident orca pods, and boat-only hot springs lies just a few hours north of Seattle, within reach on no more than a passport and a ferry fare. That's Vancouver Island, and it's vast, bigger than the coastal footprint of most American states. Its western side, around Tofino and Ucluelet, serves up wild, temperate coast beauty with no equivalent in the lower 48. Pacific Rim National Park Reserve guards some of North America's least spoiled Pacific coast. Tofino's surf is world-class, and whale watching runs from March into October dependably produce humpbacks, gray whales, and the area's famous orca families. Canada itself is safe, English-speaking, and reassuringly familiar in every way that smooths out a foreign trip. It's roughly 2.5 hours from Seattle to the Sawasan Ferry Terminal, plus another 2 on the water, and the whole journey still comes in under most domestic flights to Hawaii, with something genuinely extraordinary waiting at the far end. The one real note is cost. In tourist hubs like Tofino, fuel, food, and lodging all run high, so plan for it. Give it 4 or 5 days at least because the distances are real, and the best of it, the surf beaches, the boat and hot springs, and the whale trips reward slowing down over racing between highlights. Now we're into the top 5, the trips that don't just repay the effort, they reset what a great one feels like. Number 5, the San Juan Islands of Washington. Most Americans have never weighed this Pacific Northwest cluster as a vacation, and the ones who have are quietly glad the crowds haven't caught up. Scattered across the north end of Puget Sound and reached by ferry from mainland Anacortes, they offer island living that's profoundly calm, lovely, and unexpectedly complete. Orcas Island, its name taken from the pods that travel these waters, rises to mountain lookouts over 100 square miles of island-flecked sea. San Juan Island holds a national historical park of its own, tide pools packed with anemones and sea stars, plus a lavender farm that turns a hillside purple by midsummer. Lopez Island runs flat and pastoral, almost entirely rideable by bike, with a small-town ease that gets people quietly calculating whether they could move there for good. The ferries are reliable, the infrastructure solid, and the wildlife, bald eagles in the firs, harbor seals on the rocks, porpoises crossing the bow, matches what many travelers fly to Alaska to find. Reserve ferry tickets well ahead for summer and pack rain gear. It isn't optional. But for sheer slow, unhurried island quality inside US borders, the San Juans deserve real consideration. Hop between the 3 main islands by ferry and you get 3 moods in one trip. Orcas for the hikes, San Juan for the wildlife and the town, Lopez for the bike rides and the quiet. Number 4 is a place most people file as expensive, remote, and complicated, and it has grown more reachable than most Americans realize. The Galapagos Islands suffer from a reputation so outsized that people stop weighing whether to go and just assume it's beyond them. But the wildlife, marine iguanas stacked on lava, blue-footed boobies high-stepping their courtship dances in the open, giant tortoises lumbering with the calm of animals a century old, exists nowhere else on the planet. These creatures evolved with no real land predators, so they have essentially no fear of people. You don't watch the wildlife here from afar so much as pick your way gently around it, since it won't budge for you. The diving and snorkeling rank with the world's best. Hammerheads, whale sharks, sea lions spinning barrel rolls around you below the surface, manta rays drifting by as if in slow motion. Ecuador runs on the US dollar, so currency is a non-issue, and Americans get up to 90 days visa-free. Park fees and a conservation surcharge add up, and a well-run multi-day cruise, the best way to see the full spread of islands, is a real investment. But this is no luxury mirage. It lives up to every claim anyone has ever made for it, and more. Whether you pick a live-aboard cruise or a land-based stay-hopping island to island, the wildlife is the same once-in-a-lifetime encounter. Just book well ahead, because the best boats and guides fill months out. Number 3 is a volcanic archipelago marooned in the mid-Atlantic that pairs dramatic scenery with deep calm and stays almost unknown to Americans. 9 volcanic islands rise from the North Atlantic under Portuguese ownership, yet closer to the Americas than to mainland Europe, the Azores, one of the most complete, underrated island destinations going. On São Miguel, the largest, a pair of crater lakes lie side by side inside a caldera so broad that entire villages sit along its rim. One lake glows vivid green, the other deep, saturated blue. At Furnace, the ground runs hot enough that the local signature dish is cooked underground in volcanic steam. Whale watching here rates among the Atlantic's finest, the deep surrounding water serving as a migration corridor for sperm whales, fin whales, and several dolphin species year-round. Crime is extraordinarily low, and the slow tempo feels restorative rather than sleepy. The Azores sit at level 1. English is well understood at hotels, restaurants, and tour operators, and the flight from the US East Coast runs only about 4 hours, shorter than reaching plenty of destinations in the American West. That nearness, set against the quality of the place, makes the value almost impossible to argue with. Go May to June or September to October for the best mix of weather, light, and manageable numbers. It's the rare place that satisfies hikers, whale watchers, and hot spring soakers in equal measure, all within a short drive and all under a fraction of the crowds. A landscape like this would draw almost anywhere else in Europe. Number 2 is an Indian Ocean chain whose beaches truly match the Maldives for a sliver of the price and the crowds. Radhanagar Beach, on Havelock Island in the Andamans, has been named one of Asia's finest by publication after publication, and on a still morning, the Bay of Bengal sliding between pale green and deep turquoise beneath a sky that somehow feels wider here, the claim is tough to dispute. The chain lies in the eastern Bay of Bengal under Indian administration, yet hundreds of miles of open sea cut it off from the mainland, which has shielded both the sea life and the culture in ways you notice at once. The coral is in excellent shape. The warming and bleaching events that have wrecked reefs elsewhere have hit these protected waters far less, and the marine variety visible even from the surface is extraordinary. Because it's Indian territory, costs run dramatically below comparable island getaways in the region, and Havelock and Neil Island, the 2 most visitor-ready stops, have built up solid guest houses, good restaurants, and seasoned dive operators over the past 15 years. Getting there means a flight to Port Blair, then a government or private ferry onward. Permits are required but processed on arrival with little fuss. Restricted tribal reserve zones on certain islands must be respected without exception. Not red tape, but genuine legal and ethical lines protecting indigenous communities. For anyone willing to handle the logistics, the Andamans deliver a tropical experience of the very highest order at almost implausibly good value. And that leaves number 1, a Pacific island nation that, by nearly every measure, is the single finest tropical destination Americans somehow never think of. This is Palau. Nothing else on the list does to a person what Palau does the first time you put your face in the water. The marine life is staggering. Blue Corner ranks among the most celebrated dive sites anywhere, its currents sweeping nutrients along the reef wall so that seemingly every Pacific species converges there in numbers that beggar belief. Jellyfish Lake has to be felt to be understood. A sealed-off saltwater lake where millions of harmless golden jellyfish migrate across the surface every day and where you can float among them in their thousands. Palau runs on the US dollar. English is one of its official languages, and the State Department rates it level 1. The islands are clean, the people welcoming, and the government has put real conservation law behind it all, including a ban on the sunscreen chemicals that damage coral, keeping the marine environment in a state most of the Pacific gave up long ago. It's a serious haul to reach, routed through Asia or Guam, but ask any diver who's drifted the wall at Blue Corner and they'll tell you Palau sits at the very top for a reason. For American travelers, it is the most underrated tropical island going, and it isn't remotely close. That's the countdown: 20 islands with the water, the wildlife, and the quiet. The famous names lost years ago, none of them the place everyone else is flying to. Skip the crowded shortlist, aim somewhere unexpected, and the tropics open right back up. The only question left is which one you check the flights for first.